Hi, this is Danielle Nicolet from The Flash, and you are listening to my friend Elias here on the Man Cave Chronicles.
Welcome to another episode of the Man Cave Chronicles.
Welcome to the party, pal!
You're my boy, Blue!
Yo, Adrian!
A podcast with interviews of amazing guests from the world of pop culture.
Oh, yeah!
TV.
Nice!
Movies.
Oh, I love the movies!
Comedy and more. From deep inside the Man Cave, your host, Elias.
Danielle, welcome to the cave.
Hi, thanks for having me.
How are you? What's new with you?
I'm good. Just getting ready for the holidays, wrapping up work for the year, and being surprised that 2019 went as fast as it did.
Oh, yeah, I believe that. You've been busy the last few years with numerous TV show appearances. And I just read online you wrapped up an indie film. And, of course, everybody knows you from The Flash, and we'll talk about that. But I want the listeners to get to know a little bit more about you. Where are you originally from?
I am originally from a little town in northeast Ohio called Ashtabula. And if you've never heard of it, it's because most people haven't. But it's a very sort of like industrial kind of eastern Midwest kind of town.
How was it growing up in a town like that?
It was a little bit challenging, to be honest. You know, I was somebody that knew that I didn't want to live there forever.
Yeah.
So it can be a little bit tough when you're growing up in a place that you sort of don't belong. But I'm really grateful for it. It gave me, I think, some really solid roots.
Yeah.
That I feel like gave me a good work ethic and a good sort of like jumping off point in life.
Mm. So what were you into as a kid growing up in that town?
Well, when I was little, I was a competitive gymnast, actually. So I pretty much spent every second of my childhood either in school or in gymnastics class or at home watching sports with my dad.
Oh, wow.
And occasionally rebuilding some motors. I think my dad wanted me to be a boy.
Oh. Did you end up having any brothers or sisters?
I do. I have an older brother.
Okay.
He always was kind of the more creative one when we were little. And he's still a creative now. But, yeah, growing up in Ashtabula, my brother was definitely a little bit more of this sort of, I don't know if oddball is the right word, but he fit in even less than I did.
Yeah. So how did you pursue the acting world then? What made you get into it?
I always knew I wanted to do it. It was never a question for me.
Yeah.
And I just was very fortunate. Ashtabula, Ohio is not the first place you think of in terms of where, the next generation of actors is coming from.
Yeah.
But because I was good at gymnastics, thank God, I got very lucky. And when I was young, I got recruited to a couple of gyms to sort of train on a more serious level. And one of those gyms was in Southern California. So I started traveling back and forth in order to train during part of the year. And then eventually, when gymnastics started being too much on my body and I couldn't do it anymore, I figured now's the time to finally admit to my parents that I had an ulterior motive the whole time. And it was all just to get myself, I figured if I went to California, then I could maybe do really well and end up in a commercial or something doing gymnastics. And then I'd get discovered. In retrospect, it didn't make a whole lot of sense, but made sense to me at the time.
Yeah.
And fortunately, my mother was receptive to the idea and decided to be supportive of me. And so when I was about 15, we moved to LA and stayed there permanently.
Oh, wow. Everybody just...
Yeah.
Wow. How did you...
No, well, not everybody. Dad is still in Ohio.
Okay.
Mom and dad got divorced when I was, I think, 7.
Okay.
And so I'm sure part of moving to California was also my mom's way to be mean to my dad, but that's a whole other chapter.
Yeah.
But so mom and brother and I moved to LA, and dad is still in Ohio with stepmom and step siblings.
So what was the next step after gymnastics? How did you start it? Did you take acting classes?
I gotta tell you, it was such dumb luck. It really was. I mean, all I knew was I really, really wanted to be an actor.
Yeah.
And my mother didn't know what to do with me. You know, what do? You're like a family from Ohio and you've got this teenager that's saying you want to be an actor. So we got the agents list from the Screen Actors Guild and walked up and down Sunset Boulevard and gave, like, kid you not, like a 3x5, like, printed out photo of me standing in front of a flower bush to every single one of those agents. And yeah, and one of them took pity on me and said, you know, let's see if we can at least get you like a little bit of experience. So they hooked me up with a couple of featured extra roles on some sitcoms just to sort of see how I did on a set, which was a really good way to sort of get familiar. And by featured extra, it basically means someone who doesn't have lines, but they serve a purpose in the scene. Like on the old school sitcoms, there'll be like a party scene with a bunch of teenagers, and there'll be like a cute girl in the corner that a guy's flirting with. And maybe a couple of scenes later, you see him kissing her, and then it's a big thing. So I did that a couple of times and realized for certain that it was what I had to do with the rest of my life. And that same agent sent me on a couple commercial auditions, and I booked one, and I got my SAG card, and I got very lucky. And once I had that, I started getting some more auditions, and before I knew it, I was working.
Wow, that's without even that's even without acting classes. That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the acting classes came to be sure, and I'd take acting class in school, but it was when I started working a little bit that that's when I realized if I'm going to take this seriously, then I've got to be serious about it. So I ultimately ended up going to 3 different schools, and I got kicked out of the second one, which led to the third one.
Oh wow!
And that's the one. Yeah, you know, there's a couple of methods, and as an actor, you sort of find the one that's right for you.
Yeah.
I had this really amazing acting teacher, Eric Morris, and he is still an incredible teacher, and he is wild and eccentric and really inspiring, and he's really hard on his students. And I was in there, and he was like, listen, you're not giving it enough. You're not committed enough. You're not fearless enough. Get out of my class. You're not doing it right. And I'm super grateful for that because I needed the kick in the butt. And also it led me to my school, which is the Joanne Barron D.W. Brown Studio, it's the sister school to the Actors Studio and HB Studio in New York. Like all 3 of them are essentially one. And they're Meisner, and that's my method. And that's what I found out was the right thing for me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong, because I was doing some research on you. Was one of your first gigs after you getting your SAG card, was it Family Matters, TGI Fridays, sitcoms?
Yeah, exactly.
How was that? How was it being on a show like that and like even step by step? And like, because back then, Friday night, that was huge for those shows.
Back then, Friday nights was everything. And like as a teenage actor, oh my gosh, that was the thing to be on. To be perfectly honest with you, there was a lot of good and a lot of bad. It was really good because it was incredible exposure for me. It was an incredible opportunity to learn what I was doing and to learn it in the company of other kids.
Yeah.
And it also, you know, some of those kids I'm still friends with to this day because we all had that experience together. On the other hand, it was rough. Like the directors weren't always very nice to kids, especially. It was a time, I think, when the adults that ran those shows ran them like really tight ships, and it didn't always leave a lot of room for you to be a kid. And so, Family Matters in particular, as much as I love to this day every single actor on that show that I worked with and a handful of the producers I'm still in contact with, but like the director of that show was abusive to me.
Oh. How old were you when you landed that gig?
16. Oh. You know, I mean, I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I didn't know a thing. You know, I was like, I think I just turned 16, barely 16.
And how you've done other numerous TV appearances also, like, I mean, the list goes on. Third Rock from the Sun, Heartland. Like, what's been, like, your favorites that you've been on?
Are we just talking TV or film?
Both.
Gosh. TV, it's really hard to narrow down. I've obviously been on one show or another since I was pretty young. It's really hard to say. Film-wise, it's a toss-up between Central Intelligence, because that was such an incredible, like, you know, kind of big movie experience. And it's spending a few months in Boston with The Rock and Kevin Hart, like you can't beat that experience. It just doesn't get better and more fun. And I honest to God don't think I had not just that I didn't have a bad day on that movie. I didn't even have like a bad minute.
Oh wow!
It really was such a joyful experience for me. But on the other hand, film-wise, I did this little movie for Netflix right around the same time called Deidre and Laney Rob a Train. And like budget-wise, in terms of the glitz of it all, it was the completely opposite experience of Central Intelligence, and yet just as amazing. It was a bunch of us working for no money because we loved this script in the middle of Utah. The actors, we just all shared one giant trailer because we just wanted to be together all the time.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was me, David Sullivan, Ashley Murray from Riverdale, who's now going to be one of the leads on Katie Keene, Rachel Crow, who obviously is an amazing singer, and she has her own new show coming up, and Tim Blake Nelson, who's incredible on Watchmen right now, and I'm obsessed with him. Shazir Zameda from Saturday Night Live. It was just this great group of people, and it really was like going to summer camp together and just like sweating out this super fun story and trying to figure out how to make it funnier every day. So it's an interesting thing in this business. Like sometimes having all the money in the world to play with makes an experience great, and sometimes having no money to play with makes an experience great.
That's a good way to look at it both ways. I mean, like, and you said you kind of made memories out of that too. It's like a great story.
Oh, it's honestly like every time I think about it, I just feel happy. Both of those movies, every second of them, I just feel happy.
Yeah.
And I think every job, every show, every film, you come away with a handful of great memories and usually one lifelong friend if you're lucky to. But both of those projects were ones that I feel like just the whole overall experience was so joyful, and I felt like I grew so much as an artist that I can't ever think anything negative about them. And then TV-wise, I got a long list to choose from. I'll be honest, I'm just really happy doing The Flash right now.
Yeah,
it's a really cool gig, and it like fulfills all of my childhood TV fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, and that was my next thing. It was like I was going to tell you, it's like you're on like one of the best TV shows to this day, The Flash.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I agree.
I got my wife watching it. That tells you something when my wife is watching it.
My favorite thing in the world is when people come up to me and tell me that they watch it with their family.
Yeah.
Because it lets me know that it's not just for one age group. It's not just for one type of viewer. It's like everybody watches it for different reasons, and the fact that you can all watch it together just like thrills me so much. Mm-hmm. And it's as a kid who loves fantasy stuff and sci-fi stuff and comic books and things like that, it's like a childhood dream come true to be on a show like this.
Mm-hmm. I gotta ask, when you were young, did you watch the original Flash with John Wesley Shipp?
I did. Yeah, I watched it with my brother. My older brother was a huge comic book fan, and he also was my greatest torturer. So there was nothing he liked that he didn't force me to do with him. So that meant I had to read the comic books with him, and I had to watch all the shows with him. But for me, like, even as a little girl, like, I loved Wonder Woman, and I had Wonder Woman pajamas. And even, like, our shows when we were super little, I watched Electric Company every single day with the hopes that today was going to be the day that Spider-Man was on.
Yeah, I remember that. And it's funny when you said...
you remember that? Like,
oh, yeah.
Oh, it was so hard, too, because they only did, like, 2 Spider-Mans a month.
Yeah. And it's funny when you said Wonder Woman pajamas, because it's like my little daughter, that's all she wears at night is that kind of stuff. Or Frozen now because of the movie and everything. But
yeah, that's kind that's like some of my most favorite childhood memories
Yeah.
are around. It's funny how that happens, right? Like your childhood memories end
Right.
up being based around the shows and the movies that you watch and that you care about and that you watch as a family.
I know. So you play Cecille Horton on The Flash. We just talked about how exciting that is. How did you get approached for the series?
It's a long story. I will try to truncate it. So, I would say it was about maybe the year before Arrow was made.
Okay.
I did a movie with the creator, with Andrew Kreisberg, who created Arrow with Greg Berlanti, and he also created Flash. So he had created or written this film that I starred in that also was functioning as a backdoor pilot for a different network. And so we got to know each other. We worked for 3 months in Europe shooting this thing and developed a really good relationship with each other. And I'll tell you a secret I don't think anybody knows. When that show didn't get picked up, Andrew went ahead and created Arrow. And when he wrote the pilot for Arrow, he actually wrote a role for me.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and the character's last name was De La Vega, and that was an ode to my character in the pilot that we did that hadn't gotten picked up. I auditioned for it, and I didn't get it.
Oh.
Annie Alonso got it instead.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't get it, and it was devastating.
Wow.
So anyway, Arrow went forward. Flash came the year after that. Andrew called me up during season 1 of Flash and said, hey, do you want to come do the show? I want to introduce your character to the universe, which is what they call all of the shows.
Yeah.
I want to kind of introduce your character to the universe with the intention of bringing you on as a regular next season. And I said, I would love to. I came in, I did 2 episodes in season 1, but I had already done a pilot for another show called Born Again Virgin. And so after my second episode of Flash in season 1, the pilot for Born Again Virgin got picked up. So they cut me out of the second episode so that my character wouldn't get overly established.
Yeah.
And I went ahead and did that other show for 2 seasons. And then when it ended, within, I would say, 5 hours of it, the word going out publicly in the trades that the show was over, my phone rang and it was the producers of The Flash saying, hey, we just heard your show was canceled. Do you want to finish what we started? Do you want to come back to the show? And I was like, oh my gosh, you can't fly me to Vancouver fast enough.
Yeah.
So they kind of reintroduced me in season 3 and, started setting up what I was doing. And then by season 4, we had agreed that I would come on full time after that. And Cecille got pregnant and got her powers. And then here we are.
Yeah. How would you describe Cecille?
Ever evolving, and I mean that in the best way. She's sort of, well, I don't know. That's an interesting question. How would I describe her in terms of what my perception of her is, like the place that I try to play her from,
Yeah.
or how would I describe her in terms of as written?
The first thing you said.
I made a decision when I agreed to stick around on the show full time, which was like the beginning of season 4.
Yeah.
So between season 3 and 4, I got a call saying, hey, listen, this is the plan. This is what we want to do. We want you to agree to come on full time, and we want Cecile to get pregnant, and we're going to give her powers. After I was done jumping up and down, pretending like I wasn't completely freaking out in excitement, because I was, but I pretended like I was cooler than that. I really thought about this type of show, and I'm a fan of this type of show. And I thought to myself, how do I join this literal Team Flash in a way that serves the show and also serves the audience? Because shows like this have teams for a reason. Everybody kind of plays a part. And I, as a viewer, like nothing less than when a character like appears and gets shoved down my throat. And so I made the conscious decision that Cecile was going to come into the show in a way kind of as a reflection of what I felt like a fan would experience. The Joe West character is deeply and truly lovable.
Yeah.
And he's soft and he's smushy and he is so caring. And I decided that if I was coming into the show as a fan, I would want to see him have a love interest that meets him with that and that has that same level of compassion and loving nature and can really add on top of that, not try to like compete with it. And then the other thing I felt in terms of her having powers was, if I was a fan of the show and I, in real life, if I started dating somebody and found out that his family had superpowers and then I woke up one day and I had them, I would be ridiculously excited. Like, I'd be doing cartwheels and I'd be so stoked that like you couldn't stop me from smiling. And so I decided that's what I wanted Cecile's experience to be.
The only thing that
through season 4, she had that.
Yeah. As I say, the only thing that your character is missing is you don't have a suit like everybody else.
Oh my gosh. I have a love-hate relationship with this notion because I really, really, really want a suit. Like, I want an outfit so bad, but I only want it for a few episodes.
Yeah.
Because everybody who has to wear an outfit also has to shoot very late at night on the streets when it's cold. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very lucky in the sense that Cecile's powers are passive and everyone else's powers are active. Yeah. So Cecile kind of gets to be like, guys, I think something's wrong. You should go deal with it. And then everybody else has to go do the hard stuff.
So you work next to Jesse Martin a lot. How would you describe the chemistry between you and Jesse?
Everything that you see between us on the screen is exactly how the chemistry is in real life. Like, there's from the moment we met in season 1, there's never been any effort that's had to be put forth on either of our parts to play those characters opposite each other. It's been such a kind of beautiful. Sometimes you do a show, you do a film, and you work with somebody, and they may be gorgeous, they may be really nice, but you just don't have chemistry with them. And as an actor, you have to manifest it. That doesn't happen on this show. Like, it's all very, very organic, and for that I'm grateful. Jesse and I look forward to the days that we work together, because we know once we get there, whatever it says on the page, it's going to be elevated by our chemistry, just naturally.
So who came up with your nickname there, Cecille, your Fate Horton?
My gosh, I honestly don't know. I'm trying to remember the first episode that we said it, because as a general rule, Cisco comes up with the nicknames on the show.
Yeah.
But it wasn't Cisco's character, and so I don't remember who wrote the first episode where it was said. I don't know. That's an interesting trivia question. I'll have to go back and see when the very first time it was said, and then I can tell you which writer came up with it.
Yeah. So I mentioned that you've had a lot of scenes with Jesse. Is there somebody else on the cast that you would love to have more scenes with that you don't?
The answer to that is almost everyone, but I would probably say Los. I have so much fun with him. Los and Tom both. Tom Cavanaugh is hands down the most enjoyable person on the planet to work with. And when he and Carla, yesterday I worked with he and Los together, and I know I have a lot of stuff with them this next episode, and I'm so looking forward to it, because it's just a day full of laughing and music and ridiculous jokes, and it almost doesn't feel like work.
Now, there's so many CW DC shows that are on there. Are you a fan of any other ones that you enjoy watching?
Flash is my fave, obviously. I do get into Supergirl as much as time allows. I feel like there's such a sweetness to Supergirl. I feel like somehow it kind of goes hand in hand with Flash. There's a real kind of sibling-esque dynamic that they both have. Plus, I think Melissa Benoit is not just an incredibly nice person, but she's also a personal hero. So I really enjoy that. I watched all of season 1 of Black Lightning, and I'm looking forward to binging season 2 over my holiday break.
Yeah, that's a great show.
I really enjoy Black Lightning. And yeah, I would say of all the shows, there are so many to choose from. Those are probably my top two.
And now we just witnessed the first 3 episodes of Crisis. What are your thoughts about those episodes so far?
Oh my gosh, I feel terrible. You know, I'm not allowed to say anything about anything. You know that, right? Like,
Well, the first 3 episodes, the ones that are on the air?
I get so nervous saying anything because I have a big mouth and I don't want to spill any beans. I will say, this is what I will say. I feel like that episode of The Flash was so strong.
Yeah. I believe, yeah.
So strong.
Yeah. My favorites.
Why do you have a question mark at the end of your yeah?
No,
You're
I mean,
like, yeah,
no. I mean, it was good. I mean, like my favorite scene from those 3 episodes was, I mean, when Green Arrow passes away and you just see the Flash's face, and you're like,
yeah,
like he lost his best friend.
Yeah, because he did. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, Flash would not exist if not for Oliver.
You're right.
Oliver wasn't just his friend. He was also his mentor. He also was his original trainer.
Yeah.
Like, you can go back to season 1 of Flash, and yes, of course, Caitlin and Cisco helped him train.
Yeah.
But Oliver is the reason that he's the Flash.
You're right.
And it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. Like, Grant deserves an award for that scene alone.
To this day, I still remember the training scene where he's shooting arrows at him in the first season.
Me too. Me too. And I think that was one of the strongest. And, back then there wasn't, like, traditionally the notion of crossovers.
Yeah.
It was moments like that, scenes like that actually created the whole notion of doing crossovers, and it's because Grant and Steven are so good together, and their characters just were so good together. And I think there's something inherent about mentorship as a theme on shows like this, and I don't really think it's been done. Admittedly, I haven't watched all of the universe's shows as obviously closely as I do the one that I'm on, but I feel like it hasn't really been done as well, as strongly as the mentorship between Oliver and Barry.
Yeah.
Just hasn't.
I agree with that. I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I just think as a storyline, there's such strength to it. And I feel like it's kind of so classic comic book to have that happen. So, for me, I think that's the main reason why I thought it was such a strong episode, because this has been how many years in the making, this relationship, and for him to lose Oliver, it's just really, it broke my heart to watch it.
I agree.
What do you think about the newness of, like, Batwoman being in there and Black Lightning being integrated? Like, what do you think about all that?
I liked it. I thought it was fun to watch all those other characters interact with each other, and like
I did too.
2 different versions of Superman. Actually, 3 if you want to count the Clark Kent that we saw on the farm too. You saw 3 different Supermen, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I loved that too. And the idea of Brandon Routh being in a Superman outfit makes me happy every single time.
Yeah. So, tell us about your indie film that you got coming out.
I'm so excited about this movie. It's really going back to my comedy roots in a huge way, and it is a loosely scripted, ridiculously funny. And when I mean, like, I use the word ridiculous on purpose. Like, it's a ridiculous premise about 2 idiots who decide that they're going to get rich quick by scamming a church out of money and making a faith-based movie. And it's full of, it's as hilarious and offensive as you can possibly imagine, and yet it's also really heartwarming, and it's really sweet-spirited. And it's full of incredible comedy heavy hitters like David Koechner, who, like, I've only seen Anchorman 17,000 times, so it was really exciting for me. Margaret Cho, Jason Alexander. It's got Lance Reddick being funny, which as in Lance Reddick, as in Yes, as in The Wire, and John Wick, and Fringe and Incredible Intensity. All I can tell you is you're going to see me and Lance Reddick in a head-to-toe green screen outfit carrying balloons. It's, like, just dumb in every way. And it was written by two of the sort of original Funny or Die writers and stars by the name of Tanner Thomason and Luke Barnett. And these guys are just so talented and so funny. And they worked their butt off to make this movie happen. And it's possibly the funniest thing I've ever been in. And I've been in a lot of funny stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's starting the festival circuit pretty soon, and it's going to come out in the spring, and I'm just really thrilled for everyone to see it. And it was an absolute blast for me. I love being on The Flash. It was really nice to spend my hiatus going back to being funny for a month or so.
So you said it's going to come out in the spring, like nationwide at theaters, or is it going to like a streaming service?
Yes. No, we're anticipating nationwide in the theaters, and it's a little early yet. They haven't named an exact date of when it's coming out, but we do know it's coming in the spring.
Yeah. So after that, what's next for you for 2020?
2020 is back at it for The Flash.
Yeah.
And right now I'm trying to figure out what hiatus is going to look like. I try very hard. The show shoots many months for the year, which is unlike most shows. Most shows are kind of done in 7 months, and we shoot 9.5.
Oh, wow.
So you only have so much time to get a little vacation in and see your family. And then, if you're lucky, try and do a film or another project. So I'm taking meetings right now, trying to line up what the project for hiatus is going to be. And also it's going to be doing a lot of promoting faith-based. And then before we know it, I'm going to be back here.
Time flies.
Those 2.5 months go by quick.
Yeah. So how do you have all this time I read online that you enjoy cooking. Where do you find the time to cook when you're working so much?
Well, I have a million food allergies, so I had to learn how to cook.
Yeah.
And which I never knew growing up. My mother was extremely rebellious against her own Italian food pushing mom. So my mom was refusing to cook. So yeah, these last many years, I've realized I kind of love it. And it's just sort of another avenue of creativity. And I have a gluten allergy, so there's lots of stuff I can't eat. And sometimes there's things that I want and nobody can make them but me. So the next thing I know, I kind of found myself I should go on MasterChef if they had a MasterChef gluten-free.
My son
home
had
chef that can't use meat.
Yeah, my son had gluten allergies, so I know all about it.
Yeah, it's hard because you want to eat like everybody else, but you're limited. So it turned out to be, I found out many years ago. And so that's when I started learning how to cook. And I found out that it's really fun for me to figure out how to make everything in a way that I can eat it.
What else do you enjoy doing when you're not working?
Yoga. I'm a bit of an exercise hound. I really like being outside, so yoga, hiking, and anybody who follows my Instagram knows that I'm currently obsessed with my puppy, which if you heard any weird noises in the background, that was Biggie being obnoxious and not understanding that I'm on phone. And and then I really enjoy traveling. I try to get as many places as I can, as often as I can. I always feel like I'm late and that I haven't seen enough of the world. So I think it's a side effect of growing up in a small town.
Yeah. So what's the next place you want to visit that okay, I'm going to say you have a month off. What's the next place you want to hit?
Ooh, tough call. I was just having this conversation with my husband. And so right now the toss-up is between South America. I really want to go to Argentina, but I don't know that it's necessarily the best time to do it right now.
Yeah.
And he really wants to do Chile, Patagonia. And then the other option is going eastern Mexico and seeing Mayan ruins.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, or possibly Peru. Same answer, going to see ruins.
Is your husband a history buff? Does he like the history and stuff like that?
Yeah, but mostly he just cons me because he's a surfer, and so he just tries to talk me into going places where he can surf, so he can say he surfs. Yeah.
So, Danielle, lastly, how can the listeners find you on social media?
All my social media is the same. It's Dani Nicolet, DANINICOLET. Instagram's kind of my main drag. I don't really Twitter too much, but I try when I can occasionally remember. But I try to read, I try to answer comments. I try to respond to people as much as I can, as long as they're nice. And Yeah, and I try to tell everyone I apologize in advance for pictures of my puppy. One day he won't be a cute puppy anymore, and you'll get less of them.
Danielle, thank you for coming on. This was fun.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me anytime.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap, everybody. That's a wrap.
Thanks for listening to the Man Cave Chronicles podcast.
I finally get my man cave.
You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at the MCC Podcast and our website, themccpodcast.com. Until next time.